Hello students, Miss Lockhart here. Let's work on our color gradient painting. So you have practiced drawing the animal that you have chosen, and hopefully you'll have some muscle memory and it won't be too hard to draw on the back of these paintings now. And we'll be using a pencil either way, so we can always keep practicing. So fold your paper in half. Notice the painted side is on the outside. So the inside of the fold is the white back of the paper. Now I already tried to draw a line down the middle and decided folding it would just be a little easier. So ignore that line, that's already there. We're just gonna fold, meet the corners, and make sure the paint is on the outside and the white of the paper is on the inside. Okay, now you can mark those fold lines with your pencil so we know where to cut. We're gonna cut both of these in half, all the way down the fold line. So grab your scissors and remember to stay seated when you're cutting. I know you guys are really good at cutting. Just as a fun reminder, we'll be cutting a lot, so go ahead and just get comfy and stay seated with your scissors. So you'll see I have 2 of my warm color gradient pages, and I'll cut this second one here with my cool colors in half. So I will have 2 cool color gradient pages. Okay, so that is your next step. Go ahead and cut your halves. You have 4 total, and then you can pick either of the warm or the cool pages to start drawing on. Go ahead and grab your sample, the sketch we just did together, and kind of have it nearby so that you can look at it and reference it. Now, if you chose the Howling Wolf, then you're in luck because I'll be drawing it again right now. So you can get to see me draw it, I guess, a second time. Okay, if you're doing a different animal, go ahead and do your best to draw it again on the back of your paper. And try to make it the same size, if not a little bit bigger, if it'll fit. You can always do your animal a little bit bigger than you're drawing. Make sure it's not a teensy tiny drawing. If you draw a small animal on these pieces of paper, it's going to be really hard to cut out. So definitely try to make it large, like about to the length of your hand. Now I'm repeating the same steps I already showed you in how to draw this dog video, but I'm going to go ahead and talk us through it starting now. So we're doing curved lines. I just did the curved line around its bottom jaw and its neck. It comes kind of down and then curve to the right and then down again. It's like a wide S. And the back is that nice arch, that curve. I'm gonna erase some of the pencil lines that I don't need. Now you may be drawing a completely different animal, so you may want to either stop this recording if it's distracting you, or fast forward to the cutting stage when you're ready. Okay, so I'm gonna do its tail. It has sort of like a textured tail, and then the line where his leg is a little bit bumpy. And then bring the leg line up with a curve so that you can see its hip. And then the arm, diagonal line that comes down to the right and then curves up for a little paw, and then follow the same line, same direction you just did, but a line above it. Now you can pause and erase whatever part of the drawing you don't like if it's not working for you, and spend a few more moments making it look like the animal you've chosen. And you can see I'm sort of outlining, and I made the dog's chest a little wider, and I'm just checking to see if I like everything that I did here. So far so good. I'm gonna make the ear a little bigger, maybe make the head a little bit bigger. Since I can and I have the space, we might as well make it bigger. And making the jaw a little bigger. So you see how I just took the line and just went above and outlined the previous line and just made it a little bit bigger, following the same curves. Now I'll erase the extra lines because I don't want to be confused when I cut it out. I want to know exactly where to cut. So do not start cutting until you're 100% happy or happy enough with your animal silhouette. And then you can start to cut it out. Now don't worry about this paper. You can cut right through it to get to your animal. Now because we have a lot of curves, you're going to need to look closely how I cut this detail. I'm actually only opening and closing the scissors a little bit as I turn the paper. And I just continue to turn the paper to follow the curves while just slowly cutting little cuts, not big cuts. I'm just doing little cuts so that I can keep turning the paper as I do so. And I'm also cutting off the big bulky pieces of the paper that are just going to get in the way, so that way I can get into these nice grooves. You see how I turn my paper, and I do kind of rotate my scissors a little bit, but it's mostly the paper moving so that I can follow the curved line. You can go as slow as you need, and remember, cut off that extra paper when it gets in the way. It really helps. Okay, I'm even making the head a little larger because I'm cutting outside of the pencil line I made. Now I'm going to go straight down the back of the wolf because it'll be an easier cut, and then I'll go back to that little space. And I'm going to make the tail a little bit bigger too. See here, I decided to go ahead and cut a little bit outside of the pencil line to make it a little bit bigger. And look how I'm moving the paper a lot to make those textured bumps to represent the tail. Okay, so I still need to cut between the legs. All right. So again, little tiny cuts with your scissors, and then move your paper to follow the curve of your drawing and your animal. So continue to just get into the small spaces and the small angles, and take your time cutting this out. And remember, even if you do make a mistake, you can always tape it back together, and that'll work just fine. Okay, so I'm almost done cutting out this first dog, or wolf, or coyote, I guess. And I'll go ahead and go around the ear. That was a hard spot to reach, so I waited and cut off all the bulky paper around it so that I could get to it. Okay, and I rotated my paper a lot during that last curve. All right, so now I have my cutout, and now the paper's a little bit, it's a little thick, so I'll be able to trace it. And look how nice that looks right on top of our cool colors. The contrast is really vibrant and beautiful because our warm colors are so different from our cool that the contrast really pops. So now that we have our cutout, we want to trace it, but notice what direction I'm tracing it. So I'm going to have the painted side above on top, and then I'm going to trace around my dog. So this side will be a lot easier because you don't have to remember how to draw it again. But hopefully the practice drawings helped you when you did your final drawing. It definitely helped me. Okay, so I'm going to continue to trace, and then I'll know exactly what to cut out. Be sure to hold it in place, hold it steady. I keep on having a hard time. It wants to move, so you have to really take your time and reposition your hands so that you can trace all of the angles that are hard to reach. Okay, here it is. Now I can see that line pretty well, and I am ready to cut it out. I'm going to go slow in real life, but the video is a little sped up because you know how to cut it out. We just did that. So make sure you rotate your paper and just do small cuts with your scissors. Okay, go ahead and line up your animals. See how they look on the opposite color schemed paper. So put warm on cool, and then put cool on warm, and see how the colors just really pop and look great side by side. Okay, so I'm using a marker to kind of fill in a few little spots where you could see the white paper, which would really stand out on the cool background. So I'm just using these markers that are hopefully similar enough in color to fill in that white. And I'll do the same thing to this one with the blues and the greens. Okay, so they are ready to be glued now. I'm going to be using the liquid school glue, and go ahead and you can use any glue you have. Glue sticks might actually leave a smoother finish. The liquid glue you definitely need to spread out and don't leave it in little dots, but either will work just fine. So, okay, my glue is ready, and I'm gonna go ahead, oops, looks like I forgot that part behind the ear. Definitely need that. The silhouette would be very different without that ear. Okay, so found another little white spot right there. And I'm gonna add the glue. You can be doing the same thing with a glue stick, just going right over the back and fill it with glue. If you are using liquid glue, try to spread it out so it's not in dots like this. See how I'm doing that? That will help. It glued flat. Okay, so carefully pick it up and glue it right in the center of the opposite colored paper. So I'm gluing my cool colored silhouette onto the warm background, and I'm gonna hold this down for maybe like 20 to 30 seconds and just make sure it stays. And if any part is coming up, put extra glue there and hold it down. Well, I am happy with the contrast between the warm and cool colors. It makes for a beautiful silhouette of the howling dog. Okay, so you can go ahead and get ready to glue your second animal. After we know that the first one stays flat, okay, and it is. So I'm gonna be doing the same thing here. Just gonna make sure that I fill in all the space. I'm just doing dot, dot, not a lot, and I will end up making the dots sort of smooth and going over them a few times with the end of the glue, like that. Sort of spread out the little dots. Okay. Now I'll put it in the middle, and I want it to be as close as I can to the same spot that the other one is glued in, so that it looks nice and symmetrical. Make sure to press down where there are little glue bumps or texture from that liquid glue. Just go ahead and gently press down with your thumb. You don't want to mess up the paint, so don't be too rough, but you can press it down and look, the glue dries pretty flat. Well, thanks for following along, everyone. I can't wait to see what you've made.